Okay, now I'm going to show you how to do short and long quotes in MLA style coming from a play, specifically a prose play. So when you're quoting Shakespeare, you're not only quoting a play by, if you're quoting a play by Shakespeare, you're not only quoting a play, but also a poem. So it's a different style that combines both citations of poetry, slashes, and line breaks with a play. I'm going to show you how to quote a prose play, meaning a play such as A Raisin in the Sun, A Doll's House, Death of a Salesman, Long Day's Journey into Night. Any text that is from a prose play. So there's actually really three types of quotes for a prose play. The first type of quote you may have is one character speaking, but only speaking up to 3 lines of your page. Then you have one character speaking, but it takes up more than 3 lines of your paper. And then you have 2 characters or more speaking to each other, and you would like to quote an interchange between more than one character. So let me start with the first type of quote from a prose play. Just a quick reminder. This is the third body paragraph of my essay. I want to remind you about the heading in MLA style. Your name, your teacher's name or professor's name, the name of the course, and the date written in this style, the number, the month, the year, no comma. Remember to include a title, centered, that is not the title of the book. You want to come up with a interesting, eye-catching, attention-grabbing title. Remember to make sure that your spacing is correct. You want to go to line spacing options. You want to make sure both of these say 0. Usually this one is set to default at 10. You want to decrease that to 0. And you want to make sure your line spacing is double. Okay, so I'm going to start my new paragraph by hitting enter and then tab. You indent the beginning of your paragraph. In this paragraph, I am going to demonstrate writing quotes from a prose play. A prose play is a play that is not written in poetry. This could include A Raisin in the Sun, A Doll's House, or Death of a Salesman. The other type of play is a play written in poetry. Shakespeare and the ancient Greek playwrights are some of the examples of playwrights who wrote in poetry. For the purposes of this screencast, I am only showing how to quote a prose play. So remember that you will introduce the quote with some context. Who is speaking? What is going on? When and where does this quote take place? Now, my first type of quote is one character speaking in a short quote, meaning 1 to 3 lines of your essay. So you want to introduce the character by saying, Walter says, comma, space, quotation marks for a short quote. So I'm going to pick a random line spoken by Walter just to make a point. Give me a second. Of course, Walter says, he was my father too. And let's see, I'm actually going to pick a previous one. C, did you hear? Did you hear? C, did you hear? Did you hear? Now, because this is a prose play and it is published in book form, I'm going to use the page number. In a poetry, a play written in poetry, you might use the act, the scene, the line number. But for the purposes of this play, I'm going to use the page number. And this comes from parentheses, page 38, and parentheses, period. Notice that I used the exclamation point here because that was the punctuation in the quote. But I still follow with a period to show that this whole quotation is over. Summarize the quote in your own words so that the reader has a clear idea of what was happening in that quote. Now transition into analysis, where you will specifically state how and why this quote proves your argument as stated in your thesis. Remember that this will be at least 2 sentences to allow you to effectively prove your point. Okay. You can then transition into, sorry for the abrupt switch there. I was just making my font a little bit bigger so you can see more clearly what I'm doing on my screen here. So I want to now transition into, you can then transition into your next quote, which will be an example of a long quote with only one character speaking. So my next quote, I'm going to quote a character saying more text. So Mama's going to say something. So start by giving the context of the quote, which could include the speaker, the events leading up to the quote, where in the play the quote happens, etc. Then you want to start by saying who's speaking. Mama says. Now, I did a comma there. Colon for a block quote. Enter for a new line. Okay, here comes a big line of mamas. Okay. Give me a second here. I gotta hold my book down with a remote. There we go. So I'm going to write, because I'm only having one character speaking, and I've said who that was right here, I'm going to start just writing her lines. Notice I'm not using any quotation marks. Crazy about his children! Exclamation point. God knows there was plenty wrong with Walter Younger. Hard-headed, mean, kind of wild with women, plenty wrong with him, but he sure loved his children, always wanted them to have something, be something. That's where brother gets all these notions, I reckon. Okay, so you see how that was 4 lines? So I'm done. I follow this. I put the period at the end of the sentence rather than after the parent parentheses. And in parentheses, write the page number this came from, 45, end parentheses. Now, I want to highlight this, the entire quote, including the parentheses. I want to push tab. There's my double indent. I click at the end of the quote. Push enter. Now notice my cursor is at the end, is lined up with the block quote. That is not what I want. I want to get back over here. To do that, I push backspace once, and it will return my cursor to the appropriate place. This sentence is for you to recap what happened in your quote. Even though this may feel obvious, may feel, what's the word I'm looking for? Overkill. It helps the reader to get a clear idea of what is happening in the quote. Follow your summary with your analysis. This should be at least 2 sentences. You want to write the word out completely. And reference the thesis and argument directly. Excellent. After your analysis, you may want to work on transition to your next quote. The next quote will be an example of how to quote dialogue between 2 or more characters. Set up the context by saying what is happening, what led up to this moment, where and when it happens. Okay, now I'm going to begin my quote. You may or may not have a lead-in. You, for example, might say, I'm going to go to a different page here. Mama and Ruth and Benitha discuss Benitha's new lessons, enter. Now I'm going to type the dialogue. So I'm going to start with writing the first character's name in all capital letters. Mama, followed by a period. See how I did that? Space. Your what? Excuse me. Kind of lessons. Now I have another character talking. I'm going to write her name, all caps. Benitha, period. Guitar. Return. I'm putting enter, sorry. Now Ruth is going to speak. Ruth, capital, period, space. Oh, Father, exclamation point. I'm done. Parentheses, page number 47. And parentheses, there we go. Now, I'm going to highlight what I've written. I'm going to push tab twice. Tab, tab. I'm going to click to the end of my quote, hit enter. Notice, my cursor is not in the right place. How do I get it in the right place? Backspace. Do I push indent? Do I push tab? No, because this is not a new paragraph. This is the sentence where you summarize your quote and transition into analysis. The next 2 or 3 sentences are analysis. Okay, I want to stop there so that I can recap. You have learned in this screencast how to quote from a prose play. A play written in everyday language, not written in poetry with no rhyme, with no line breaks. A poem written in regular paragraph structure. I have shown you first how to do a short quote with only one character speaking, where a character is only saying 1 to 3 lines of your essay. I have shown you how to write a long quote where one character speaks. This means that the quote takes up at least 4 lines of your essay and you write it in a block quote style. Then I showed you how to write dialogue between more than one character in a block quote form. Thank you very much.